Hello viewers, in this video I am going to give the notes on unification of Italian states. This is mainly focused on mains UPSC GS paper 1. Let's begin our topic. Previously we discussed the main industrial revolution, French revolution, Russian revolution and American revolution, as well as many unification and how the boundary to be drawn during the world history period. Now the lecture is focused only on unification of Italian states. Let's begin our topic. So first, unification of Italian states. For many centuries, the Italian peninsula was a politically fragmented conglomeration of states. This was the case when the United States announced its independence from Great Britain in 1776, when a war broke out between Austria and the revolutionary French government in 1792. The French invaded the Italian peninsula, consolidated many of the Italian states, and established them as republics. In 1799, the Austrian and Russian armies pushed the French out of the Italian peninsula, which led to the demise of the fledgling republics. After Napoleonic rise to power, the Italian peninsula was once again conquered by the French. Let's move on to next slide. Under Napoleon, the peninsula was divided into three entities. The northern parts, which were annexed to the French Empire, the newly created Kingdom of Italy and ruled by the Napoleon himself, and the Kingdom of Naples. Naples, which was the first ruled by Napoleon's brother Joseph Bonaparte, but then passed to Napoleon's brother-in-law Joachim Murat. The period of the French invasion and the occupation was important to many ways. It introduced revolutionary ideas about government and society, resulting in an overthrow of the old established ruling orders and the destruction of the last vestiges of feudalism. The ideals of freedom and equality were very influential. Also, of consequences, the concept of nationalism was introduced, thus showing the seeds of Italian nationalism throughout most parts of the northern and central Italian peninsula. Let's move on to next slide. Here, when the downfall of Napoleon in 1814 and the redistribution of territory by the Congress of Vienna during 1814 to 15 years period, most of the Italian states were reconstituted. The Kingdom of Piedmont, Sardinia, the Grand Duchy of Tuscany, the Duchy of Panama, and Papal States, and the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies. These were largely conservative regimes. They are having to follow the strict rules and regulations and preside over by the old social orders, that is the traditional means of livelihoods they are needed. And although the Italian peninsula remained fragmented through the mid-1800s, the concept of united Italy began to take root. Secret scientists formed to oppose the conservative regimes, and several of these societies also promoted Italian nationalism and the idea of a unified Italian political state. One such society was the group Young Italy, founded in 1831 by Giuseppe Mazzini. Mazzini was an ardent advocate of the necessity for Italian unification through the desires and actions of the Italian people. So Mazzini, who was important person during Italian unification. Thus, the movement of Italian unification, a process referred to as the Risorgimento, proliferated by the mid-century. This means the resurgence of the Italian unification. And the revolutions of 1848 ignited the nationalist sentiment throughout the Italian peninsula. There were widespread uprisings in several Italian cities that year, mostly by the professional classes like doctors, lawyers, shopkeepers, as well as the students. Lombardy, Venetia, and Milan tried to raise up against Austrian rule, although the Kingdom of Piedmont, Sardinia sent troops to aid the revolt. It was crushed by the Austrians at Custoza in July 1848. Custoza is a place. The Italian uprisings were unsuccessful, and by 1849 the old regimes were once again in place. Yet the idea of the Risorgimento, that is resurgence, continued to gain adherence after 1848. The final push for Italian unification came in 1859, that led by the Kingdom of Piedmont, Sardinia, and though in Sardinia there are more wealthiest and liberal persons in the Italian state, are are orchestrated by the Piedmont, Sardinians, and Prime Minister and Council Camillo di Cavour, a skilled diplomat. Cavour secured an alliance with France, and the Franco-Austrian War of 1859 was the agent that behind the physical process of Italian unification. The Austrians were defeated by the French and wait, Piedmontese at Magneta and Solferino, and thus relinquished Lombardy. By the end of the year was Lombardy. So here, what happened? The most of the wait பண்ணுங்க. By the end of the year, Lombardy was added to the holdings of the Piedmonts in the holdings of Piedmont's Sardinia. The northern Italian states held elections in 1859 and 1860 and voted to join the Kingdom of Piedmont of Sardinia, a major step towards unification, while Piedmont, Sardinia ceded Savoy and Nice to the France, and Giuseppe Garibaldi, a native of Piedmont, Sardinia, was instrumental in bringing the southern Italian states into the unification process. In 1860, Garibaldi gobbled together an army to march into the southern part of the peninsula, landing first in Sicily and then moving onwards into Naples. The Garibaldi and his men overthrew the Bourbon monarchy and turned over the southern territories to Victor Emmanuel II, the king of Piedmont, Sardinia. In early 1861, a national parliament convened and proclaimed the Kingdom of Italy, with Victor Emmanuel II as its king. At this point, there were only two major territories outside of the parameters of the new Kingdom of Italy, Rome and Venetia. In 1866, the Italian joined the Prussia in campaign against Austria in and thus won in the Venetia in 1870, taking advantages of the fact that the France was distracted by involvement of the Franco-Prussian War during 1870 to 71. The Italian States Army enter into Rome, and that year the Rome and the Papal States were incorporated into Italy, and the resurgmented completed. Again, that insurgency is completed, and during the summer of the 1871, the Italian capital moved to Rome Florence. From Florence. We move on to major event during unification of Italy. Certain major events are happened. So first major event is Franco-Austrian War in 1859. After striking an alliance with the Napoleon's in France, the Piedmont Sardinia provoked Austria to declare war in 1859, thus launching the conflict that served to unify the northern Italian states together against their common enemy, the Austrian army. So they have the common enemy is called Austria. So the Austrians suffered military defects of Magenta and California, and a ceasefire was agreed to at Villafranca. In peace negotiations, Austria ceded the Lombardy to France, which then ceded it to Piedmont Sardinia. And proclamation of Kingdom of Italy in 1861. The aftermath of the Franco-Austrian War brought about a series of plebiscites in the northern Italian states. By going to the ballot box, the states voted to join Piedmont Sardinia, with the ultimate goal of unifying the entire peninsula. It should be noted that Piedmont Sardinia was one of the more powerful states in the peninsula, as well as having one of the most liberal political systems. Garibaldi's march to liberate the kingdom of the two Sicilies in 1860 brought the southern peninsula into the fold, and the new kingdom of Italy was proclaimed on March 17, 1861, with the royal family of Piedmont Sardinia as the new ruling monarchs of Italy. Next, the US recognition of Italian independence during 1861, April 11. The United States officially recognized the Kingdom of Italy when it accepted the credentials of Chevalier Joseph Bernatisti as Minister Plenipotentiary of the Kingdom of April of Italy on April 11, 1861. So, addition of the Venetia in 1866, the Kingdom of Italy added Venetia to its holdings in 1866, following the Austrian defeated in the 1866 Austro-Prussian War. Let's discuss about incorporation of Roman during 1870s onwards, and French troops were the main barriers to the Italian occupations of the Papal States after 1867. However, when Prussia declared war upon France in the summer of 1870, the Italians took advantage of the situation, with the French resources allocated to the struggle of the Franco-Prussian War during 1870-71, and Napoleon III ordered his troops out of the Italian peninsula. The Italians entered the Papal States in September 1870s, and through the packing of a plebiscite held in early October, annexed the Papal States and Rome to the Kingdom of Italy. Next, the US legislation and legation to the Kingdom of Italy moves to Florence and then Rome in 1865 to 71. During the Kingdom of Italy moved its seat of the government from Turin to the Florence in 1865. The US legation followed. During the summer of 1871, the Italian capital moved from Florence to Rome. So currently the capital of Italy is Rome. Reflecting the completion of unification, George P. Marsh as US minister and oversaw the move of the US legations from Turin to Florence in 1865 and from Florence to Rome in 1871. So the overall impact upon the US foreign policy on Italian unification, the history of recognitions between the US and the Italian states impacted several different areas of US policy, including trade and commerce, immigrations and citizenship, etc. So first discuss about trade and commerce. The industrialization process that swept through the northern United States in the early 19th century spread through the northern and central Italian states in the mid 19th century. As a result, the Italian states, the king and the United States both sought to cultivate trade and commercial ties for mutual benefit. Second, immigration and citizenship. By the 1870s, the Italian immigrations to the New World, both the US as well as the Argentina, amongst other Southern American countries, also recognized the New World, began to increase. Indeed, some of the fathers of the modern Italy spent time in the United States. The Garibaldi spent enough time in the US to gain US passport and was offered a commission in the US Army during the Civil War. Next, the US Civil War, that is going to impacted by the unification of Italy. So the unification of Italian states impacted the foreign policy of the US in numerous ways. Perhaps the US issue that had the most immediate impact upon the US foreign policy in the early 1860s onwards was over the question of recognitions of the US Confederacy. So, the recognition of the Italian was proclaimed just as the US Civilian War began, and US President Abraham Lincoln wanted to ensure that the new Italian state did not recognize the US Confederacy. Washington also worried that with Italy's long coastal line and the Confederate ships might seek shelter in the Italian waters, and with this in mind, the Italian government gave the strong assurance that no Confederate ship would be admitted to Italian ports unless it was a question of adverse weather conditions or otherwise major. So, till now we completed the topic on Italian unifications. So here we have to given certain important major events and how the war started how it is to be impacted the US federation policy here to discuss. So we should consider all the topics from the first unification of Italian states introduction to how it is to be impacted the US foreign policy, etc., and major events like Franco-Austria war you have to included, and addition of Venetia, and how the capital of Italy from Florence to Roman it's changed. Till now we completed that topic. So if you are like my video, like it, share it, and comment it, and subscribe the channel. Thank you for watching. Thank you.